Hello and welcome to Films and That. My name's Rob Turnbull.
And my name's Sam Hall.
And today we are looking at Under the Skin. Under the Skin is an abstract sci-fi horror involving a sexy space alien picking up Glaswegians in a van.
I like that, but it does sound almost comedic.
Yeah.
Picking up Glaswegians in a van.
This review contains spoilers. So the first thing you're going to notice when you watch this film is it is quite an abstract film. There's a lot of 2001 Space Odyssey influence, I thought, particularly in the opening sequence, which is the opening 10 minutes of this film are really incredible. There's this big eye that's being assembled.
Very, very slowly. You know, that sort of idea of like you don't know what it is. That's part of its selling point, I think, in that it's almost supposed to be from the viewpoint of an animal. It's not meant to be from our understanding or our perspective. It's just through human vision, but not through human eyes.
It's to set that up as something so unhuman and otherworldly to make us uneasy.
And like in the way that when you watch a nature documentary, you know, you don't care what the birds are tweeting at each other. Yeah. You know, you don't know. As far as you're concerned, they're just making noises at each other. And that's kind of the feeling that you're meant to get, you know, the Scottish people talking you know, like as if they're animals or something, you know.
Scarlett Johansson plays, you can interpret it as an alien or a synthetic alien, but it's never explained. But I've always thought of it as a kind of construct that the aliens have created to come down and then interact with humans in that way. But
she's sort of minded by another alien. It appears as a human motorcyclist. They're always in a motorcycle suit, aren't they? They're always going around on a motorcycle. But they don't communicate with humans or interact with humans in any way. But the Scarlett Johansson alien does. I
noticed that they walk oddly. They walk less human than she does. She walks very robotically, whereas they kind of walk a bit more like lizards. So I don't know if they would just be too suspicious in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I think they would give the game away.
So their plan is to come to Earth and pick up humans kind of on the sly, so other humans don't notice that they're missing, and then they take them away and they harvest them for meat.
It's not necessarily that it doesn't matter what they're doing with the humans. It's more that we're not really meant to understand it, I suppose. We're not meant to understand their motivations because they're alien to us. But you know, that aspect of it is the more horrifying aspect, I suppose. And
there certainly are some elements that are just nightmarish, aren't there? Some very disturbing imagery.
On the surface, she's almost like a prostitute. She just lures men away into her flat. And then they go in and she takes her clothes off in front of them, walks away from them, and then they start sinking into the ground.
Well, they seem to go into this kind of trance, don't they?
Yeah.
It's kind of a nightmarish dream where you want to get somewhere. Have you ever had that dream where you want to travel somewhere and you can't? That's the kind of feeling you get from that, and they start to sink into the floor and they eventually just fall down, and then Scarlett Johansson leaves. She walks back and she just leaves, and they're just left under the floor in this nightmarish world. And they slowly dissolve over time. I think it was this second person she lures back. He goes down into the floor and he sees the first person kind of almost not a person anymore. He's still there.
Really, really loose skin.
Those bits can only be told through film. So it's an adaptation of a book, but those nightmarish scenes weren't in the book. They play out in a kind of perfect mixture of visual stimuli and an audio stimuli.
It's the combination of those elements, isn't it? Sound and visuals.
Yeah.
That are incredibly important with it. I mean, we've already said that there's not really a lot of dialogue, but it's not just the sounds that you hear, but that the kind of the tone that you hear them at, the way sort of noise sort of garbles around you in this as an experience in the film.
Are you okay?
I know, I followed you.
Right behind up. A lot of this film is shot guerrilla style with just real world actors. So it's Scarlett Johansson, but she's made up to look quite different. She's got a black wig on and she's got this British accent, and she just goes around in a van talking to actual strangers, people that aren't actors.
And Glaswegians as well.
The worst kind of people.
Oh no. Still, I have nothing against Scottish people. That was one of the aspects of the film that was sort of sold to me before I saw the film. Looking at every discussion about the film would usually show a clip of her in the van with a little secret camera talking to people, and as we understand it, some of the people she was talking to didn't know who she was or that they were being filmed. That was intentional. To
add a sense of authenticity, which is that is what makes the film quite scary, I think, because it really brings it down to, this could be actually happening. It doesn't feel constructed.
What's even scarier is that she seemed to understand the Glaswegians better than I could.
I wonder if she didn't, and she just kind of went, yeah.
See how long that way, and then take a left, so it's right, then it's there, it's the motorway's there, it's a big asda, you'll see it.
Okay. There's really great moments when she starts probing these strangers. She starts asking them questions like, where are you going to? You live at home, do you? Do you live on your own? And then if they go, no, I'm just going to my family, she goes, all right, and she kind of puts the seatbelt on and drives off.
Yeah.
And her face just completely changes, and it's quite well acted, I think.
Yeah, it's brilliantly acted.
She starts to become more sympathetic to the humans, and she starts to realise what she's doing is wrong. And there's one bit when she picks up a guy who has a deformed face.
Yeah, worth noting that it was played by an actor who actually had a real deformity.
He's kind of suspicious of her because he's not used to that world of people picking him up or people being interested in him sexually. I guess that's what you're meant to read, aren't you?
Yeah, he's still suspicious of the whole thing, more so than the other characters who are much more confident and just thought, I've just picked up a good lassie. I'm always doing that. I'm always picking up grade A actors. He, again, like I said, he's sort of looking around him a bit more. He mentions that he's cold as soon as he goes into the house.
Well, so he's more aware of his surroundings. So when I said about the trance before of they're in a nightmarish state,
they're fixated. Their eyes don't move at all.
He's more suspicious. He's looking around, and she's trying to draw his attention towards her. She goes and sees the mirror in that point. And then she sees herself and she sees this fly, and it's kind of a big realisation for her. I read it as she starts to see that she's not much different from these people. She starting to wonder who she is. There's a scene when she's eating a cake, she's like trying to imitate the people around her, and she's eating something and she just puts it in her mouth but then immediately spits it out. She can't physically eat.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know that she can't eat then at that point.
Well, this whole part of the film, this section is of her trying out various different human experiences to see if she can find some kind of relation to them herself.
And then she's picked up by a stranger.
He doesn't force anything out of her.
He seems to just want to help her, and so he's making her meals. He's letting her stay at his house. He's watching Tommy Cooper. Yeah. Strangely.
Very popular once.
Maybe it still is in Scotland.
She realises she doesn't seem to have a sense of humour. She can't understand humanity in that way, but maybe she can understand them in other ways. Then she tries to engage this man in a relationship.
I don't know who initiated it, but it seems quite equal, I think. Maybe they both wanted that from each other. So she tries to have sex with this man, but then realises she can't because she doesn't have the right parts. And she starts to investigate her own body.
There's a scene where she takes all her clothes off in front of a mirror, but it's not sexualized in any way. It's purely an investigatory thing from her perspective. She's investigating what she is.
Well, that's what the whole film is about. It's about looking at the human form, the human society from an alien perspective, isn't it?
From a way that would seem a bit less natural to us, to humans.
There is an interesting dynamic shift, and she bumps into a man in the forest who ends up trying to rape her. The man is the predator in that situation where she was the predator before.
Yeah.
Men do seem quite stupid in this. They seem kind of single-minded.
yeah, it's not the most positive, even though it's directed by a man and written by a man, is it? The book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not the most positive spin on men in general.
She does start to become aware of the kind of horrible sides of humanity. He ends up tearing her skin off, which is quite disturbing, and then he realises that she's something alien. There's
this kind of black chic kind of material, you know, skin appears under her human skin.
Under the skin.
Under the skin, there we go. In her last moments, the alien part of her is staring vacantly at the Scarlett Johansson mask she's been wearing this whole time. The rapist pours oil on her and sets fire to her.
Yeah, and then she kind of stumbles off and then just dies.
Dies, yeah.
Burns up,
and ashes sort of go off into the wind, into the trees. And that's how the film ends.
It's a very bleak ending. It's a very bleak film.
Yeah.
It's focused on the kind of worst parts of humanity, I think. The kind of the primal instincts of lust and predatory sex.
Yeah, with a couple of gleaming lights dotted in, you know, throughout, like the Tommy Cooper scene and the man with the facial deformity. But and nevertheless, the whole thing is about that sort of outside perspective on humanity.
Why do you think Scarlett Johansson was in this film? Because she had the power to go, I'm not fucking doing that.
Sadly there's a logical reason to these things sometimes, and it did work in the film's favour, but initially it was meant to be a completely unknown actress, apparently, so I've read. And then they cast Scarlett essentially to get the budget for it.
Why did she do it though?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, have you been looking for something more fulfilling than mainstream Hollywood?
I don't know. I think it's been. A
lot of actors at that level will just refuse a gig like that. They, you know, they said, no. What is this low budget thing? You know, Scotland. I'm not going there. You know.
Just how brave she was to just go in a van. I mean, there were people in the back of the van, like a bodyguard was in the back of the van, but she was on her own with all these cameras, just going around to strangers, asking them to get in the van.
I guess the thing that's strange is because you know that when an actor becomes as famous as Scarlett, and she was at the time, she was certainly at her height, you know, to then go down to doing something that perhaps an actor who's just starting to get work would do. You know, that's what's interesting about it. Instead of just indulging themselves in just something that pays well, you know, it's good to see actors and actresses really challenge themselves and do something they would never normally do.
kind of would.
So what did you think of Under the Skin?
I think Under the Skin is a real underrated gem. I think it's a really great piece of art, isn't it, more than anything else? There's great visual moments and really uneasy, nightmarish scenes, great use of sound. It's just kind of like the pinnacle of storytelling in a filmic way. I don't think this story is particularly well developed, but I don't think it has to be. I think it's very abstract, and that's fine. Watching it multiple times, I didn't think it needs to be as long as it did. I think there's a few scenes which could have been cut out and made shorter. But on the whole, I think it's such a unique film, and I'm really glad that it's made, because I love that kind of sci-fi abstract horror element to it, and I wish more films would do that.
You certainly get an experience out of it, and it's a visual one primarily, but it does make you question a lot of things about it, and one of the things that I do like about it is that so much of it is left open in terms of interpretation. You know, you can just dive right in it, and you don't need to come out of it with all the answers. You know, there are certain films. Prometheus was an example of a film you went in wanting more answers and being almost angry that you hadn't had more answers. You know, whereas this film, you can be satisfied that you don't have all the answers. You know, it's not just about the experience, but questioning it and trying to understand it yourself is part of the appeal of the film, I think.
Okay, that's it for this time of Films and That. Thanks for watching and subscribing. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Kind of what do you do with